you just can't sit around and just let a look and pray for things to happen. Like it's a balance of like, yes, there's power in that, but it's also like this, you're a human, you have capabilities, like this is your life. If you want something or seek something, then you can do it and not feel bad about it. And you can seek Yahweh through that. But like this whole, I think I totally agree. This notion of like essentially just sitting still and like waiting for things to happen. I'm sorry, for me, that just doesn't sit.
Welcome back to the Heroes of Faith podcast. On this podcast, we are always on the hunt to identify modern day heroes of faith who it turns out are just regular people and answer the call of God, say yes to God. And so today we got a guy that I happened to meet at the CrossFit gym. So I like to say he's a modern day gladiator, but he's actually a recently retired CrossFit athlete who happens to be a person of faith. And I know he's an inspiration to many of what hard work looks like and to embrace the pain kind of thing. But I'll just say that, the first thing that kind of just piqued my interest is I went to this little gym here in Yukon, Oklahoma, called CrossFit Complete West. And, turns out there's this guy who's competing at a high level. And I've been in and around and coaching CrossFit for 12 years. So of course, anybody that's at that level kind of piques my interest. And all I saw was this guy working real, real hard. And it was a whole different level than the rest of the people at the gym. And, then just through being at the gym, a couple of things that stuck out to me, Matt, is that I saw you were just a down to earth guy. When my little girl walks around the gym and she wants to pet your dog, and you were interacting with the community, things like that. And then also, come to find out this was just recently, you went over to semifinals out in Pasadena, and it was like the night before you left, I saw you coaching these older ladies that probably in their 50s and 60s, and you gave them the same kind of care and attention that you would give any guy that's in there just, killing it, or any amazing, amazing CrossFit woman that's in there. And I just thought, all right, his character is speaking more than the accolades. So, and I could run down the list of accolades. Actually, I will give you a couple of shout outs. I think your biggest accomplishment in CrossFit was being second in the world on the CrossFit Open in 2022, right? So that is massive. Just to be named in the top 50, top 100 athletes in the world is quite an accomplishment. So kudos to you for that. So that's my little intro to Matt. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that kind introduction. Also, just thank you for those stories. Those are, I don't know, something that fill my heart, knowing that. I guess things like that don't go unseen, as in, it's not like I'm doing them to be seen, but to know that I guess my true character and my qualities and my traits that I hold dear to myself, that those matter, because in the end, people matter. If anything, that's probably what you can summarize life to being, is that, people is what matter. And so, I don't know, I'm glad. Thank you for kind of reminding me, or those stories of just sharing those stories. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But anyways, a little introduction about myself, So, 27 now. I have to be 28 in this fall. So kind of it's crazy to think about. I think my 10-year high school anniversary was this past spring. I've been 10 years out of high school. And I'm like, wow, that is pretty crazy. So,
me and Pete are about to have our 30th.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sitting here going, no, you're good, man. You got a long ways to go. It's good. Yeah. It's a good thing.
A lot of life ahead of you. But go ahead. Sorry.
No. So, but that being said, I guess I grew up in California, since I was about, I guess, high school age. I grew up playing baseball and football, very young age. I think baseball was like 5, and then football when I was 8. Loved football growing up. Loved the team aspect, orientation of it. Although they're both team sports, they're just a little different. But I was always very, like, I knew, like, if I was going to excel at the high level, it was going to be baseball. Like, I guess that was kind of my gift was baseball. And I could throw the darn heck out of a baseball. Those are kind of things that I don't know, that were awesome. We're just kind of reminiscing about that. But, had aspirations of playing professional in baseball. I signed out of high school, but kind of had a little hiccup where I was being a little dumb doing a class project. Looking back, was not worth it. But long story short, I tore my labrum in that project that we did first class, and so that kind of took my scholarship away. So got surgery, recovered, went to JUCO for a few years, and then went to University of Utah to play ball there for my junior year. It was super exciting. I think my best memories of that were playing. I think we went up to Oregon State to play them at their home field, and at that time they were 1 in the nation, and just kind of get to be in that atmosphere. And man, I think they were undefeated at the time, and we almost had them 2 out of the 3. It's just, when you're a good, well, we didn't. They ended up sweeping us, but it was good teams find a way to win. I think we were up by like 2 runs into the bottom of the 8th, like had them. And then, the great teams, they find a way to win still. And so, but that was just so many good memories there, but that was super cool. Were
you a position player, or were you pitching? Or?
I was a catcher.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
I was a catcher. I was told I was going to be a pitcher because obviously I can throw it pretty well, but also looking at it logistically, like I'm not the tallest dude. I'm only like 5'10", and so, if I really wanted to play it professionally, you get pitchers, you got to be at least a minimum 6 foot plus, and so. But I always loved catching. You did catching since I was a young age. I love the aspect of it. Of obviously you're always engaged in every play, and but also I love the perfectionist aspect of it, knowing which in the end that's all positions, but I think it really sticks out with catching because there's just so many things you have to be very proficient at. Obviously the receiving aspect of it, making sure strikes are strikes, letting balls be balls, but knowing when to push that barrier. Obviously you're the commander on the field, so you are a coach on the field. So in that time, in that moment, you have to be able to know exactly where the play or the ball needs to go. You're telling people where to be. And I loved that aspect of it. And also, I think those skills that you acquire through that are things that you can't put a price on, that I found have been very beneficial in my everyday life when it comes to whether that was CrossFit now, or whether it was at job. Like I was supervisor before I stepped away for a bit to do CrossFit, but I was a supervisor at UPS. And so in that I had my own quote unquote team of 20 plus people that I had to manage and essentially put in the right position to make sure we ran the sort efficiently, at a productive level. And so it was just kind of cool getting into the work like sphere of life and kind of be like, oh, these are just kind of skills that were ingrained in me just because of what I did growing up. And so, but that being said, finished my senior year at OBU. That was kind of a Yahweh thing for sure. I guess I'll tell that story because it's kind of funny. So
let me just say that was one of the things that I noticed. Well, first shout out Buster Posey, greatest catcher ever. And then
sorry, I'm a Dodgers fan. So
oh man, I thought we were going to be friends. Yeah. Jeez.
No, I'll give respects due. Buster was he was great.
Okay, I'll give Mike Piazza some respect. How about that? Pete's over there going, what are you guys even talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, I noticed on your Instagram that you said lover of Yahweh. That was one of the things I was like, all right, I'm reaching out to Matt. So you just used that phrase again. So thanks for doing that. But go ahead, tell your story.
No, absolutely. And we can circle back to that too. But so yeah, it was my junior year. I had to find a new spot for my senior year. It wasn't just going to work. Probably wasn't going to work out the way I wanted it if I stayed at Utah. So my plan was, okay, I'm just going to find a school back in California. I'm going to stay close to home. And so went that whole summer, had a few colleges reach out to me. I was reaching out to colleges and, hey, I need a new home. You got a spot for me? And I had some options. I was going to stay in California. And then out of nowhere, I was playing summer ball on this team, and my coach on that team was like, hey, I got this school out in like Oklahoma. They wanted me to reach out, or they wanted to reach out to you. And that's early in the summer. And I was like, yeah, I just, in a nice way, I was like, hey, you could tell them, like, I appreciate it very much, but I'm probably just going to stay close to home for my senior years. Nope, I don't want to go too far. And so went like the rest of the summer, and it's about like the end of summer, so I got to decide where I'm going to go next for my senior year. And I was like, you know what? I reached out to him like, hey, what was that school's name again? I'm just going to like check them out just for fun. And lo and behold, it was OBU, and they kind of just gave me the best offer out of all the other colleges that I was potentially thinking about going. And so I just kind of was there. I was like, you know what? Well, I guess we're going to Oklahoma. And so just kind of, didn't check out the school or anything. I was at a point where, my senior year, and I was like, hey, let's just wrap it up. And obviously I knew their accolades, though, at OBU was obviously their tremendous baseball program. And I knew that guys have gotten drafted out of there numerous times. And so I'm like, okay, this is a great spot to be. So anyways, and that signed up Oklahoma, stayed there, finished up my senior year. Had to do an extra year of schooling because it was a private school. And so it was kind of funny. I was like a senior there, and I'm in all these freshman classes because I just had to check them off the list. And that's where it was actually kind of funny. So then obviously, my wife, Abigail, she also graduated. She got an undergrad and a graduate degree from OBU. We actually never met at school, though. It was a crazy thing. But we met at a Cody Johnson concert, and but it was funny because during that time, I actually had a class with her brother, her like younger brother, who was a freshman at OBU at the time. And I remember him telling me stories of like, I took care of my grades. I was a great student, but I was also kind of I realized situation I was at. So I might've been a little more loosey-goosey in the classroom. So I think I had to take like a basic chemistry class. And I'm like, this isn't help. Like, I was a math major. This isn't really helping me with my major, but I might have been in the background doing some creative narrative storytelling about our professor here and there. But and so just being that old senior in the back, being like, what's going on here? Come on, dude. And all these little freshmen are just kind of like, I get it. It's their first time. They're like so focused and so engaged. And they're like, why is this guy saying these things in the background? That's not, but anyways, that was his first kind of storytelling of me, of just the guys having some smart A remarks always in the background of the class. So, but yeah, kind of was in Oklahoma, been in Oklahoma ever since. Obviously met Abigail. I always liked it out here immediately, though. I think growing up, I always wanted to go to Texas, and I think that was also another telltale a factor that helped me decide to go to Oklahoma. I was like, hey, we're close enough. Like, maybe I'll just scoot on down eventually. And but the one thing I noticed for sure is how kind and nice the people were. Like that was like, it was like overwhelming, honestly, to where I was like, wow, this is incredible. And people sometimes, I'll tell them that out here, being from California, and they'll be like, oh, okay, like they don't fully understand it. They know that kind people are kind people. I don't know, people are the same out here, but there'd be times where I take trips back to California just for like winter break or for a few weeks, and immediately I'd be like, oh man, you guys kind of stink. Like, you guys are not as, you guys are kind of selfish, and you're not as nice out here. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I've wrapped up in Oklahoma and been here since, school. And I think so 5-6 years.
Yeah, me too. I call it the 5 Ps for Oklahoma. People ask me, what do you like about it? It's the people, and basically the general politeness, right? The prices, the pace, and actually even the politics, because people just let you alone. Like it's kind of one of those
you're pretty
things.
you're pretty free out here, which is pretty nice. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the 5 Ps of Oklahoma, and you recognize it as soon as you get off the plane. The pace is, everybody's in a rush and everybody's so like in a hurry to do their thing. And here it's just chill. People are courteous and kind. So yeah, I agree. I love that.
I think that's kind of I was born and raised in California too, by the way. So we got 3 California guys who don't live in California anymore. I think it's a Southern thing. I know Oklahoma's not really considered that, but it is. And it's, my son actually is the one who pointed it out to me. We're visiting out here from Arizona actually. And we were having breakfast and he looks at me at 9 years old and goes, "Hey Dad, how come everybody's so nice out here?"
Yeah.
And that was that was the pivotal moment where we decided we're moving to South Carolina. But it's the same thing. And I don't want to bash our California brethren because we have a lot of people who listen to us are from Cali, but I'm on a mission to move all of my friends out of that state. Sorry. Sorry, you guys. It's beautiful, but we're all right here. You got 3 people saying the exact same thing that haven't really talked about it before. So,
yeah. Well, and I think even now with the current circumstances, what's been going on out there, obviously since like the pandemic, are for sure more. Like obviously, I moved out pre-pandemic, and I was still like, "Yeah, I ain't going back." And there are times where I do definitely regret not. So I was up in Northern California, a little bit east of Sacramento, and I regret not taking advantage of the environment that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? But just like the sheer just nature, the nature just of it all. Like, man, I had the mountains an hour and a half away. I had the beach a few hours away, and the redwood forest. That's the biggest thing I regret.
Where were you at in Cali?
Yeah, so I don't know if I cut up there. So I was a little bit east of Sacramento. Are you saying exactly? Because I was east of Sacramento, 30 miles. I was in Shingle Springs, so I guess the next biggest city would be Folsom. We were about 5 or 10 miles out of Folsom.
Chad and I were in Sonora, California.
I think me and Chad, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
So
we're all kind of next to each other. It's crazy.
Yeah.
What I'm curious as to your transition from your traditional sports into something. And I'm going to say it. Shad's a cult member. I'm not. So crazy as CrossFit, because I did CrossFit once.
Yes.
And then I didn't work out for 8 months.
And I was like, no thanks.
But I know it's difficult. So what was a transition?
Man. Yeah.
Was there any let's say spiritual guidance in there at all in when it came to your path forward?
That's a good question. So I'll be honest. Yeah, by that time. So baseball, like I just, and saying this without being braggadocious, but I knew that I had a few tools that I knew were professional level. Like I knew, even though I had surgery on my arm, it was still pretty strong. And I knew I could still throw the ball pretty well. And so I knew like I had an arm as a tool, and I knew that my defensive skills were a tool when it came to catching. And I just never was able to put the bat together with it. I think a lot of, that was just my kind of struggle was like, obviously I could just never figure that out fully to where it would be good enough to then still get picked up. But anyways, so kind of when going professional, then baseball didn't pan out. I think towards the end of my senior year, I kind of knew that. And so fitness and working out have always been a part of my life. Like growing up playing football, I was always working out through there. And so I just started getting tired towards the end of my college career, getting tired of doing that traditional Globo gym type of working out. And I knew I had a few buddies who did CrossFit, and so that's something that always like kind of intrigued me. And so I tried it out one time during like winter break, and the first workout I was like, oh, I can get down with this. Like this is fun, and like it's different every single day. CrossFit, right when kind of baseball ended, and that's when I kind of found out you can compete in this. And so I think kind of summarizing all up, what I really did was kind of I traded in one glove for another. And I say that as in a lot of guys, when it comes to the end of their career, right? Baseball was what I did all growing up. Like, that was who I was at the time. And so with that comes that identity crisis of like, oh, it's over. So who am I now? And at that time, so like I guess we'll go back into like the faith thing. Like I didn't grow up really or at all like in a faith centered life. Like it just wasn't part of my upbringing. I just didn't really know about it. Like, right. Oh, I know that, there's God. And if you love him, you go to heaven. And so you're as a little kiddo, you're just like, okay, I want to go to heaven. I don't want to go anywhere else. So, so with that, when I went to OBU, I think then you get submerged into that culture. And, through that met some great friends along the way who, really spoke just, life into me, that spoke, and some professors too, that were great. That just, really were things that just, one thing like I think I always had a really good heart, but it was just always misplaced just by the culture I grew up in. And I think finally I was able to get surrounded by people and, that allowed me to kind of say it's okay to kind of show that kind of that good heart. So with that, like I got down, quote unquote, with like just the teachings of, of Jesus, of Yeshua. And that's kind of something actually you hold to this day is like, obviously when he's asked what the greatest commandment is, it's obviously to love the God Yahweh with all your heart, might, and strength. And then also love your neighbor as yourself. And, if I had to summarize the whole canon in one bit, like I'd probably snag that bit out and I'd keep that and, to myself, or not to myself. I just keep that bit and be like, hey, this is, what else do you need to know? And so, yeah, obviously going on a tangent there, but probably getting the things we want to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, we say it simple too at our church. It's as easy as love God and love others.
Yeah.
Like when it comes down to it,
yeah.
Sometimes, so Pete and I grew up in church and, we haven't lived perfect lives, but we had some great foundations. What was that, Pete?
So speak for yourself.
But, we know that we've been around what people would like to call religion or around church and those kind of things. And it can get really complicated and complex and programs and making a name and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, we're always like, what are we even doing here? Let's get back to some basics. Let's love God and love people.
Yes.
And let's see what God does and how he grows it and connect. I mean, when I'm hearing your story, we all have a story. We all have a journey and adventure. And I just see God's hand just weaving and connecting you to your wife and all these things. And I love hearing that. So
absolutely. No, I think, going back to the like torn my labrum in high school, it's like, would I've liked to not have that and had a fully healthy arm? Absolutely. But obviously I definitely wouldn't probably be out where I'm at right now if it wasn't the case. And same thing with the OBU thing. Obviously then I'm like, looking back now, it's like, why did I go back and ask about it? And like, why was it the best offer I had? And so none of those things would kind of have me where I'm at now. And so, like it just, so kind of going back to your question, and it's probably like not the answer a lot of people are thinking of, but like I got fortunate to where I didn't have to go through that like crisis of, I wasn't a baseball player anymore. What do I do now? And just, going through that dark kind of depressive time, because it is, that's how it is. Like it's an end of something that's who you were, even though like at that time I knew Jesus and I had him as like a foundation in my life, but it was still hard. Like it's still it's okay to say it's still hard, and it's okay not to kind of put on a face and be like, I know my identity is not in baseball, it's in Christ, and I totally understand and I get it, but that's not, sorry if you don't know, I'm really authentic and genuine to my core. My wife says that at times, and that's who I am, because I think we are people, and what's the point of putting on a face that's not relatable to other people, and so to me that's kind of so you'll kind of get that. I love Yeshua, I love Jesus, and I love his teachings, but I'm also like all for making it relatable to life, to people, to sit with those people, sit with all people, to welcome all people to the table and not have to put on this facade that I think we kind of, a lot of places and churches.
You're amongst friends in that regard.
Yeah.
We have the same, I'm ex-military. I don't know if you know anything about me.
Yes, no, I know what you do now, which is pretty BA. So,
well, but we in the military, and I was fortunate this didn't happen to me, but we wrap our identity up because you're living, eating, and breathing it.
Absolutely.
Most military members get more done before 9 o'clock than most people do in the whole entire day. So when a lot of guys get pulled and girls get pulled out of that, they do go through this identity crisis, and it's horrific. And that's why you have so much suicide in the military and amongst veterans. It's not because of the things they've seen in war. I never could comprehend that because I've been to war quite a few times. But it is when you get pulled out of that and you're like, oh my God, nothing's ever going to be as good as this, or I peaked, I'm done, right? It's all downhill from here. But when you have your identity in Christ, and that's one of the big things we try and push and we're trying to help our men out with in this organization is if you put your foundation in that, it doesn't matter what you do. That's not who you are. It's just another tool that God is going to use you through to bring other people to him. Because it's like we were saying, love God, love people. That's our goal, right? I say it every time, if our goal was about us, if it was about us and our identity, we'd receive Christ and we'd go straight to heaven. There'd be no reason for us to suck here on this earth. Like you're saying, it's going to be hard no matter what you do while you're here in this life. It's just like working out, right? You stop doing it. You stop going through the pain of doing it. What happens? You atrophy, you get out of shape, and it takes pain and work and hurt in order to stay in shape. And it's the same thing with us in our walk. You can expect it because the Bible says that, expect to have trouble, while you're here. But the end goal, of course, is, we have this crown and peace in heaven, as you were talking about. But it's only if our identity is solidly based in Christ and we are authentic, as you were saying. And that's one of the things we push here is like, we don't want personas. We don't want, a lot of times we're like, maybe we should go after some big names and talk to them, all this other stuff. And it's like, no, we actually want the dudes that are relatable, like you're saying, realistic people that are just being obedient to Christ on their path and whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter if it's the janitor at the high school reaching out to the kids or something like that. I should say that differently. Telling the kids about Christ or something like that. And then, or just like you in your journey through sports and everything else. And it's like just being that example to others. That's all it takes, is obedience and authenticity. And you're absolutely right on that.
I agree with you. Like it's right. You take the values, the teachings of Jesus, of Yeshua, and like make that part of who you are and your identity. And with that comes a lot of good fruit, obviously of good fruit. And with that comes a lot of just impactfulness. And I think that's a lot of what life should be about. Kind of going back to, I'm reminded on the stories Shad was sharing earlier about, hey, when I coach, I don't care if it's who I'm coaching, whether it's another version of me or if it's another, 65-year-old granny who's having troubles cleaning. And it's like, I'm going to give it everything I have to invest in this person and to make sure this person knows that they matter. Because in the end, I think that's what all humans just want. They just want to be accepted. They want to be welcomed. They just want to, they want to be seen. And, and that's what Joshua did during his time here on earth. That's what he did, man. He sat with all those, he welcomed all to the table. And, it's like, we can, like, I think Shetty, you can make this thing so complicated. And, I kind of tell my wife, we talk about this sometimes too. And you're like, hey, let's put everything aside. Because in retrospect, this thing was written 3,000 odd years ago. This all obviously depending which canon you're looking at, and it's like no one's going to get everything right, and we're going to misinterpret, and we do misinterpret a lot of this because contextual factors are different. And so, like, if I was to, if my time's up and I got to face Yahweh head to head, and I had to come up with one answer, I'd be like, you know what? I erred on the side of if I erred on the side of love, and I'm okay with that answer, whatever that may be. I loved people. I welcomed people no matter what their circumstances are, and that's something I can hang my hat on and be okay with as an answer. And so
that's so good. Yeah, love that.
So anyways, it kind of circling back to, the CrossFit thing. Like I didn't have to go through that crisis at the time. And I guess maybe deep down, I kind of knew it was going to come. I think specifically I had a conversation with Jim Long at our gym. And so we would talk a lot. He played professional baseball, and so that's where we relate a lot. Like we talk about all that in the aspect of competing through ball. And we were talking, and he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "Don't get a." And I knew there was going to be a time, right, where I had to hang up the CrossFit hat, and I knew that was going to be a difficult time because then now I don't have anything else. Like I think he specifically says like, "Hey man, you just." It's like, it's going to come. Like, it's going to come. It's okay. Because like what you did, you just kind of traded in one glove for another. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. Like I did. It's not like I didn't have to sit with it too long. I got into CrossFit and I saw that you could compete, and that was in my blood. And whatever I do, I want to be the best at it. And so that's where I just obviously hopped in the last 5 years and been doing that. And so I knew the time was going to come where, hey, like that identity crisis thing's going to come. And so that's kind of been this past few months of, being like, okay, sitting there saying, hey, do we still want to do this? I guess the first question, do you want to keep doing this? And I think I kind of came up to the answer, or the answer of probably not. I think I'm tired. I'm tired of, and I'm trying to, I'll make this relatable to people who are listening who aren't in the functional fitness realm, but like I'm tired of pushing myself to pain 6 hours a day, every day. For 5 days a week, not being able to really go on vacations, not really being able to just have a normal life, like because that's what it takes now at this level of going individual to go to the CrossFit Games, is that it's and there's some nuances there. Some people are maybe different, but for the most part, the sport is you got to live and breathe training in CrossFit. And I was doing it for 5 years, and I just got I was just tired. I was tired of putting my body through so much pain. And just kind of also knowing that every time I pursued CrossFit, that like I was putting me and Abigail's other future life on hold when it comes to setting ourselves for kiddos and just finances, all the things. And but we were okay with. We're like, hey, you got one shot to do this, because it's not like you got only one prime age. And so so she was very kind enough to allow me to do that, to where obviously I left even my UPS job this past year. And so anyways, back to it. I just it's been hard knowing that so yeah, I just didn't want to do it, but also knowing that right now, wrapping up, like the big question was like, I don't know, are people gonna see me as quote unquote valuable, knowing that I'm not a competitive pro, whatever you want to call it, CrossFit athlete anymore? Like are people who have been in my corner still going to be in my corner? And things you ask yourself, especially when it comes to my background and my upbringing, when it comes to the culture I was up in, the people I surrounded myself by, and my quote unquote friends. Those are things that were just, obviously that's a lot of inner work that I struggle with. And just to kind of see like when I did kind of, finally put that post out for people to say, hey, it's time for me to hang it up, and thank you CrossFit for all you've done competitively. And just to get the overwhelming kind of just love from people that just doesn't matter what I've done, what I do, what I've done or what I do, they're always going to be in my corner. And obviously that makes your heart full. And and that makes it easier knowing that, like, the people aren't going to leave just because you're not who you are, and you could still have an impact on other people's lives, and you can, just because it doesn't matter. It's not what you do. I guess it comes down to your character and your values and how you represent yourself. Like, that's what matters. That's what sticks out to people.
We put a lot of value on, we put too much value on what people do in our society, rather than who they are. But actually, I think that's kind of turning around. So anybody who's been an entrepreneur, or I'm 47 and I've gone through quite a few phases in life.
Yes. Yeah.
Of serious change in what I've done and what I do. I was at a similar crossroads recently after COVID. COVID killed my business plan. I had a great business plan. It was going great. And then it was revolving around travel, and then it was done. And I had to do something similar where I came out and said, hey, I'm closing down shop. I just can't do it anymore. But I'm looking forward to whatever God, has in store for me next. Right when I closed that door, he opened up a better opportunity. And he does that all the time, to the point where it's funny, like my wife's getting there too. We used to worry about finances a little bit. It's like, oh God, I'm going to lose this position, or I'm not doing this anymore. What are we going to do for money? To the point now we're like, we'll be fine.
Yes.
Just trust God, move forward. And I understand that if you're surrounding yourself with good people, they're not looking at what you do. They're looking at who you are. And if your identity is in Christ, they're going to see Christ in you. And then that's just going to open up more doors and more doors and more doors. Sorry. I feel like
Mordor.
I feel like
Lord of the
Rings. Mordor. I just wanted to say it. I'm not a Lord of the Rings nerd, I promise. Yeah. But it is true. It's like people look at you and your character. Another thing we looked at, or I learned just from being a leader in the military as a commander and stuff, you never stay in one position. You're never going to. You go from position to getting experience to training, position, experience, training. And it's a constant thing. And then I always tell people, retirement's not biblical, so I don't ever plan on retiring. It's just like, what is the next step, God? You're preparing me always for something else. And I think that's in your life. You're 28. You've done a lot already, which is awesome. But I'm sure God's prepping you for even more and even more and even more. And that's the coolest thing about your story and what you're telling us is you're just getting started, man. And it's like, what's the next big thing that he's got for you,
Yeah, no, I think that's a way I've had to, that's been a helpful way of like rephrasing this whole thing of it's coming to an end. It's been a little sad. It's been, a little probably depressed that when I had to make that decision, but just rephrasing it as, okay, now like, what's the next adventure? And obviously going through it right now when it comes to other potential, when it comes to new career changes type of thing. Like I've been doing a lot of interviews, and I'm fortunate enough to, once again, kind of go back, it's just ingrained in me. Whatever I try to do, I do with excellence. And so I took care of my grades, my classes. I got my master's. And so like I have a lot of valuable experience and to be able to do a lot of things. And so with that, like obviously comes a lot of, potential suitors, interviews with other, say, big boy jobs now. And where I kind of have to, things that pick this out of my hands, gotta, trust Yahweh and just to have that comfort. And I think it's also a big part, comfort, knowing that, this is logistically out of my hands, and also for my mental health and my spirituality, or we want to call it that, like it also is out of my hands, and I can put this, I can lean this towards, what my foundation is on, and that's Yahweh, and that brings me comfort, and that brings me safety, and that brings me no stress. So
awesome.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to say a lot of times, well, I'll just put it this way. You're really demonstrating that we have a lot of agency in our own lives. Pete and I kind of talk about this. it's easy to kind of get off on one ditch on the spiritual thing and wait for all these connections and leadings and signs and all this stuff. And God does do that, but we have so much agency where if we just will go hard after life, that actually God will just be with us in whatever we do.
Honestly, while you're on that, I fully, like, if I don't want to play this nicely, but like I fully back that, as in you can't just sit around. You just can't sit around and just look and pray for things to happen. Like it's a balance of like, yes, there's power in that, but it's also like this, you're a human, you have capabilities, like this is your life. If you want something or seek something, then you can do it and not feel bad about it. And you can seek Yahweh through that. But like this whole, I think I totally agree. This notion of like essentially just sitting still and like waiting for things to happen. I'm sorry, for me, that just doesn't sit well. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that doesn't mean you're less of a quote unquote Christian because you didn't allow something just to fall in your lap. Like that's just, I'm sorry, that's not how life works. And I'm not a lesser person because I have ambitions and I have things that I want to accomplish in life. It doesn't mean I don't seek out guidance and wisdom from other people, from obviously from my connection, my relationship with Yahweh. Like, anyways, just continue. I totally agree. Like, it's not, you just don't pray and then just hope it just falls into your lap. Like, I'm sorry. That's just, I just don't think, I think that's kind of where a lot of people get misguided, like to where it's okay to be a strong, ambitious person, human. It's okay to want things.
I was talking to my dad about this. He's in his late 70s now. And we had this conversation in his early 70s, like, I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this, but, you know, my leadership and to church and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, dude, I said, when you stand before God, it's not going to be anybody else standing there with you. It's just going to be you and him. Yeah, you have pastors and leadership and everything else. You should definitely rely on them and your mentors and everything else. But in the long run, you're the one standing there. You're going to answer for what you did or did not do with the talent God gave you, with the direction he gave you. As a leader, I've had to do that. You're always going to have people telling you you're not going to succeed. There's a ton of them out there. I always love just taking that as a challenge. It's like, okay, keep telling me I'm not going to succeed, because then I'm just going to do even more. There's going to be people, and there's going to be people in your life that are close to you even. I've had this conversation with my wife a couple of times, like, sorry, honey, I love you, but I'm doing this. And luckily, she's very understanding of who she married. And it's like, okay,
yes,
I trust I trust you to a certain extent. And then I also listen to her. She keeps me from killing myself on a consistent basis because I take way too much risk sometimes. But there's a good balance there.
Hey, I can relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. You got to have that anchor kind of holding you back from jumping off the rock. But no, I agree. And I want to make sure that we give you enough time. You know, when it comes to our guys here, we want to make sure that they're listening and within their own lives being able to apply some of what we talk about here. And we want to give you the opportunity just to speak into their lives. If you have anything that you would like to say directly to them, we have guys sitting on the bench waiting, and they're waiting for those opportunities like you were just talking about, and they're not presenting, and they're still kind of just like, what do I do? What do I do? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind that I kind of want to write down so I don't forget. But like, I think one that's, so I like, well, I think that what makes a lot of things relatable is just the story behind them. And so I like incorporating stories into lessons and whatnot. And so like, I think the first one is you can't live and you don't want to do anything out of fear. And when I say that, and I'll give a shout out obviously to my in-laws. They've been really big and supportive in ingraining that, and obviously their children with Abigail, but also bringing me along into their family and teaching me some of their core values, but to not live or do anything in fear. And so like with that, there was a time where out of college, I took a job to be a math teacher. And just shortly into that, I knew that it's not like I didn't like it. I love the kiddos. I do love kiddos, but I just knew I couldn't be a provider for, the foreseeable future with a teacher salary, sadly, especially in Oklahoma. And so I had to make the hard decision of like leaving, but me, and just deep down, like my heart was like, oh, I feel so bad. I feel like I'm letting these kiddos down, like to do this. And my in-laws had to remind me, it's like, hey, we don't make decisions based on fear. And so, and it's hard, and it is hard to do, but I think if you can, I think it's like anything, it's practice. You do it once and you're like, reassess how things turned out. And it's not always going to turn out for good, but just to reassess that feeling of, hey, I did this. I went to my quote unquote at the time, the principal, and said, hey, I'm going to have to step away. And just that feeling of, oh, the world didn't end. Like thinking in 2 or 3 months, is anyone really going to be like, he was such a bad person for leaving? Are they going to even think that at all? They're not. Those are just that's your own head. That's your own fear speaking into it. And so to not do anything out of fear, I think could kind of directly answers more so what you were talking about. And like, hey, you're on the fence of something, like, do I want to take the leap? It's and it's human nature to not want change. That's who we are as what our species, however you want to call us, that like we don't like change in our environment. It's how we survive. And so it is uncomfortable, but that's that kind of saying, especially if you've probably played sports growing up, that your coach will yell at you, hey, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's going to happen a lot. And you got to be able to cope with that. And so I say, don't live or make decisions out of fear. I think another one now, my wife, she's a therapist, and she's freaking awesome at it. She's helped so many people in their lives. And one thing where I think another therapist that she studies, they kind of have this analogy of like, pretend yourself as like your soul, or however, just you as a person, like as a flame. And long story short, you don't want to surround yourself by people who try to put out your flame. You want to surround yourself by people that help going to ignite your flame and make your flame bigger and bigger. And so like within that, right, with that, how that correlates, or what that's symbolizing, is like, don't surround yourself by people who are just going to try to quote unquote put out your flame, or going to try to stop you, or not encourage you, or not support you. Like, surround yourself by people who are going to support you and love on you, and just boast you up in all things that you do. And I think with that comes, that's very valuable. Like, I've surrounded myself in my younger days with people who obviously were honestly putting out my flame all the time, and I just didn't know any better. And so I just was stuck in that. And with that, I'm working on, like, there's a lot of trust issues that I kind of have when it comes to quote like friends, because I just kind of grew up with people trying to put out my flame who were my quote unquote friends. And now in my adult life, all I have are people who want to help increase my flame and feed the embers. And so with that, becomes so many good things, becomes just, I don't know, just peace, comes love, comes success, because you can't do it alone. Like, I get a lot of podcasts in the past I've done through like my CrossFit journey. People kind of, a lot of, more times than not, the host or whoever, even I'm talking with a normal person, they would stop me and they'd be like, hey, when you're talking about like your CrossFit journey, like you use the word we a lot. And it's like, and they're curious. And I tell them like, well, it's, for me, it's second nature. Cause I'm like, yeah, we, as in, it's not, no stretch of the imagination. Is it just me? It's me. It's Abigail. It's my coach. It's the people who surround me. The people who, like, shout out to one of my good friends, Chase, who legitimately, at a drop of a hat, decided to drive from Oklahoma to California for the semifinals, just so we could drive me around, so I didn't have to worry about Ubering anywhere. And like who does that? Nobody does that. And so surrounding your people who love you and invest in you and believe in you like that, that's with that becomes who knows what possibilities.